When you finish a Christopher Nolan film, you can often be confused. Inception, Interstellar, and Memento all have a reputation for confusing audiences with their endings, and for good reason. This confusion is absolutely intended by Christopher Nolan, and there are specific techniques he uses to make audiences unsure what exactly happened. I love this element of his films because it gives you a lot to think about as the credits roll. By specifically manipulating a specific part of reality, time, fact, or memory, he creates doubt about the actual events of the film and gives rise to numerous interpretations. In this video, I'm going to examine some of Nolan's most consistently confusing films and break down how exactly he confuses audiences, as well as how to make sense of each film's reality. Inception is sort of the poster child for not understanding Christopher Nolan's films. The film involves a group of thieves who can go into people's dreams, and this leaves audiences questioning what actually happened. It can be difficult to tell if something is a dream or a reality, even with the rules the film establishes for differentiating between the two.
So once we've made the plant, how do we get out? And I'm hoping you have something more elegant in mind than shooting me in the head.
A kick.
What's a kick?
This, Ariadne, would be a kick.
It's that feeling of falling you get that jolts you awake. It snaps you out of the dream.
The element of reality being manipulated in Inception is what world they're in. Are they in the real world or a dream world? Most of the confusion and questions revolves around the last scene of Inception. Leonardo DiCaprio spins a top, and if it falls over, it means he's in the real world. If it stays spinning, it means he's in somebody's dream. The problem is that the film cuts before we see if the top falls or stays spinning, leaving two possibilities. If the top stayed spinning, then he's dreaming, and if it falls over, then he's in the real world. Since the dawn of time, people have been debating back and forth whether or not the ending was real or a dream, but truthfully it doesn't matter at all, and Christopher Nolan knows this. The ending sees DiCaprio's character at home with his children, which is a big part of the emotional arc of the film, and he spins his top to see if it's a dream. Nolan could have written the ending without the top at all, and audiences just leave thinking it's real or they think it's a dream, but by introducing this debatable element, he's getting audiences to get to the root of what he wants to show with the ending. It doesn't matter either way to DiCaprio's character if he's dreaming or not. He's happy with the world he's in, even if it's fake. That's why he walks away. Even if the audience knew one way or the other if his world was real or a dream, DiCaprio would have no idea because he doesn't care. By being deliberately confusing and frustrating with the distortion of reality in Inception, Nolan is trying to make the audience feel the same way DiCaprio's character feels and eventually reach the same conclusion as he does. The difference between dream and reality doesn't matter. It's better to just be along for the ride. While a number of Nolan's films deal with a confusing timeline, Tenet uses time travel to make the film even more confusing. The way it works in Tenet is that you can either be moving forward through time or backwards through time, and a machine called a turnstile turns you around, either moving you from forward to backward or vice versa. Where Tenet becomes so confusing is that it breaks the chain of what we consider typical logic. Typically a cause leads to an effect, but in Tenet an effect can happen and a cause spontaneously occur because they're moving backwards in time. The clearest example of this that the film gives is firing inverted bullets. For someone moving in a different direction through time from a gun, the bullet hole will be there first, and then as the gun is fired, the bullet will move backwards through time into the gun. The biggest question this raises is how did these effects happen in the first place? Because for a bullet to fly out of a bullet hole in reverse time, there had to have been a bullet hole there in forward time that suddenly appeared in order for it to be pulled out by someone in reverse time. The best way to make sense of this, unfortunately, is to just not think about the physics of it and consider it to be more like a magic system, and this may have been what Christopher Nolan intended, with the idea being that spy work and spy gadgets are so advanced as to essentially be magic, but that's just my interpretation. The first 2 hours of the film is sort of a tutorial on the rules and specifics of Tenet's time travel system in order to set up the final scene, a complex fight at the Stalsk 12 military base involving soldiers moving forward and backward through time. The reverse team does their part of the mission and then tells the forward team what's going to happen, so that as forward team does their side of the mission, they can help the reverse team as they're moving backwards in time. The film calls this a temporal pincer, and it gives the forward team a massive advantage because they already know what's going to happen when the reverse team tells them, so they know what to look for. This forward-backward information asymmetry is used a few times in the broader structure of the film to allow characters to perform perfect heists and assaults. For me, it feels a bit too much like Deus Ex Machina, but I guess it does work to make a spy movie feel as massive and confusing as real spy work would be. The Prestige is a film about magicians, and the most common question associated with magic is how does that trick work? This question is the backbone of the film, both in the literal sense with some of the magic tricks, but also in a broader sense with some of the things that Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale's characters do throughout the film. Just as magic tricks the audience and leaves them wondering how something works, Nolan tricks the audience repeatedly, leaving them wondering how something worked and then completely recontextualizing every scene in the film when he reveals the twist that makes everything fall into place. From the very first scene, Nolan plays a trick on the audience.
Are you watching closely?
With the meaning and importance of this scene being revealed later in the film, Nolan is able to play with the audience's understanding of how something works through the structure of the film, which mirrors the three-part structure of a magic trick that he describes early in the film.
Every magic trick consists of 3 parts, or acts. The first part is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary, a deck of cards, a bird, or a man. The second act is called the turn. The magician takes the ordinary something and makes it do something extraordinary. Now, you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it. That's why every magic trick has a third act. The hardest part. The part we call the prestige.
The pledge in this film is the first act, introducing the two rival magicians and establishing why they dislike each other so much. The turn is much of the middle of the film as Hugh Jackman attempts to recreate the success of Christian Bale's magic trick, eventually creating a machine that allows him to teleport at the cost of creating a clone. The Prestige is the final climax of the film where Hugh Jackman frames Christian Bale for murder, but it's revealed that Christian Bale's character had a twin brother, which allowed him to perform his magic act so well. The end of the film sees Bale's twin kill Hugh Jackman, shocking both him and the audience. This final scene completely redefines how the audience sees the rest of the film, and it makes them feel like they just watched a magic trick. This structure is a great way to build suspense, as the audience keeps asking how the magicians are doing what they do, and then at the end everything is turned on its head as the secret is revealed, and you feel like you need to watch it again to see how everything fits together. Christopher Nolan's second feature film, Memento, is well known for its 2 reverse timelines. One timeline, in color, starts at the end and goes backward in time, while the other, in black and white, starts much earlier and works forward. This switching between times and directions can confuse audiences, but its main purpose is to obscure the motivations of each character, making the audience constantly ask why. Just like in Tenet, you see what a character does in the color timeline, and the next scene will be the cause of that action, and this structure extends to the entire film. The opening scene sees Lenny shoot his supposed friend Teddy, and the rest of the film slowly uncovers why Lenny does what he does and why Teddy does what he does. This questioning of motivation keeps you really engaged in the story, but on a broader level it gives you something to think about when the film is over, making you question how reliable Lenny is at telling his story, and once you discover why, you begin questioning if Lenny made the right conclusions with his information. The main driving factor of Memento is that Lenny has anterograde amnesia, meaning that he can't form new memories, so he writes down information to help him in his investigation for his wife's murder. The only reason Lenny knows his own motivation is because he wrote it on his body, but as the film reveals, what he writes for himself can be misinterpreted later on due to a lack of context. In that way, while the audience is trying to learn Lenny's motivations, he himself could possibly have falsely constructed motivations for his actions. It all adds up to an incredible ending, one of the best in the thriller genre, in which the audience knows in a literal sense why Lenny did what he did, but they come to realize that Lenny seemingly doesn't know why he's doing it. He's just going along with what he's told himself for some sense of progress.
I have to believe in a world outside my own mind. I have to believe that my actions still have meaning, even if I can't remember them.
In my opinion, this is the best use of Nolan distorting cinematic truth because the audience is sort of tricked into following the motivations of a man who has similarly tricked himself into following his own motivations. These distortions of reality allow Nolan to create great thrillers without having to hide something from the audience. The film can tell you all of the clues up front, like in The Prestige, and you still won't know what happens until the end because you don't understand how everything is being distorted. There are of course great thrillers that don't distort reality like Christopher Nolan, most notably David Fincher's films like Seven and Gone Girl, but Nolan's specific way of turning our narrative senses against us keep you hooked during the movie and give you something to think about after the movie's over. Not just the narrative and the mystery of the film, but the formal construction of the film, what's real and what's not. Going back to the David Fincher example, you can see this in his films. His films The Game and Fight Club both involve dubious reality and difficulty deciphering what's real and what's not. As much as you can discuss what literally happened in the film, characters went here and did this, there's also so much to think about in terms of what's real, what's not, and what these false realities contribute to the work as a whole. In that way, the manipulation of reality as seen in these films make it more than just a story with visuals, and pushes it to a point where it defies traditional narrative expectations, placing it in a league of its own. Christopher Nolan is one of the most popular contemporary directors right now, largely in part because of the way he can trick audiences fairly, giving them something to think about beyond just the story once the credits roll. Nolan is of course not the first or only director to play with reality in order to add meaning to his films, but he's one of a few directors who does it consistently, and he's my favorite director to do so, with it being implemented in a film effortlessly. His films slip between clearly literal and subtly manipulated in a way that feels natural, without a neon sign pointing out this is a dream sequence. People sometimes consider these films confusing because they aren't able to parse exactly what's real and what everything truly means, but that's part of the fun, and I don't think Christopher Nolan expects you to fully understand every twist of the narrative, at least not on a first watch. I hope this encourages you to check out some of Nolan's films, and if this video was interesting, be sure to leave a like. Thanks for watching.